Live from New Delhi, you're watching the India News, India's Voice of the World. I'm Leopard coming up in the next hour. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Jharkhand, West Bengal and Bihar will inaugurate key developmental projects. Amidst rising need for humanitarian aid, India reiterates its support for Palestinian people, affirms continuation of relief supply and assistance.
Conflict must not spread within or beyond the region. And let me emphasize that a two-state solution is necessary more than ever before.
Russia is ready for dialogue with the United States but rejected any attempts to force into talks. Putin also warns Western countries against sending troops to Ukraine. In a tragic incident in Bangladesh, at least 43 people have been killed after a fire broke out in a multi-story building. And on to the details now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin his visit to 3 eastern states of India on Friday. First, he will visit Jharkhand, where he will inaugurate, dedicate and lay the foundation stone of multiple developmental projects worth 35,700 crore rupees. PM will also dedicate Sindri fertilizer plant to the nation, third fertilizer plant to be revived in the country after revival of fertilizer plants in Gorakhpur and Ramagundam. PM will also dedicate to nation North Karanpura super thermal power project in Chhatra. Railway sector of the state will also get major boost with the Prime Minister flagging off 3 new trains. Later in the day, Prime Minister Modi will visit West Bengal, where he will inaugurate, dedicate and lay the foundation stone of multiple developmental projects worth 22,000 crore rupees. PM will also lay the foundation stone of Raghunathpur Thermal Power Station Phase 2, besides inaugurating Haldia-Barunai crude oil pipeline. Several other projects related to infrastructure, rail, road, LPG supply and wastewater treatment to be the key focus areas in West Bengal. On Saturday, Prime Minister Modi will be in Bihar, where in a significant boost to the energy sector, nationwide projects worth 1.48 lakh crore rupees related to oil and gas sector will be taken up. And voicing grave concern over the situation in Palestine, India reiterated its support for Palestinian people and affirmed continuation of relief supply and assistance. Speaking at the 55th session of UN Human Rights Council, Indian envoy to UN, Ambassador Arindam Bakshi said that the conflict must not spread within or beyond the region and a two-state solution is necessary more than ever before.
In Palestine continues to be of grave concern, with large-scale loss of civilian lives, especially women and children, and an alarming humanitarian crisis. This is clearly unacceptable, and we strongly condemn the death of all civilians. Mr. President, we must be clear that terrorism and hostage-taking are unacceptable and deserve our unequivocal condemnation. India has a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism. The return of hostages is imperative. We must also be clear about the universal obligation to observe international humanitarian law. Further, there is an immediate need for a sustainable humanitarian corridor to provide relief. The conflict must not spread within or beyond the region. And let me emphasize that a two-state solution is necessary more than ever before. These are not choices, these are all musts, and unless we are able to address all of them, we are not going to really solve the problem. India, on its part, will continue to support the Palestinian people through our bilateral development partnership, and we will also continue to send humanitarian assistance to the people of Palestine.
And second India-Italy bilateral consular dialogue was held in New Delhi on Thursday. The dialogue between the two strategic partner countries reinforced the strong people-to-people ties and cooperation that both countries share across consular issues of mutual interest. Both sides discussed ways of enhancing cooperation on a wide range of issues such as quicker visa processing, mobility of students and professionals, safe and legal migration, MMPA, protection of vulnerable women and children, and enabling smooth travel of of their respective nationals. Both sides agree to hold the next consular dialogue in Rome on mutually convenient date. And Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Bill Gates met India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the national capital New Delhi on Thursday. Discussions in the field of agriculture, health and climate held in the meeting. Both also discussed the lessons we can take from the world. After the meeting, Prime Minister tweeted, and I quote, "A wonderful meeting indeed. Always a delight to discuss sectors which will make our planet better and empower millions of people across the globe," unquote. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the significant increase in India's leopard population, saying it is a testament to the country's unwavering dedication to biodiversity. On Thursday, Union Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav released a report on which India's estimated leopard population rose from 12,852 in 2018 to 13,874 in 2022. Madhya Pradesh has the maximum number of leopards in the country at 3,907, up from 3,421 in 2018. Reposting the Environment Minister's post on the report on Twitter, Prime Minister said, and I quote, "Great news. This significant increase in leopard numbers is a testament to India's unwavering dedication to biodiversity," unquote. Also, quote, "I compliment all those who are part of the various collective efforts towards wildlife protection, paving the way for a sustainable coexistence," unquote. And for the first time in the world, an Indian company has developed a kit that can convert any two-wheeler into a hybrid vehicle. Electronic vehicles are a future of transportation, but there are many fears in the minds of customers about EVs like low range and charging problems. A solution to these problems has now been found in India.
It's a conversion to petrol bike to hybrid mode, electric as well as petrol. One for the petrol, one for the electric one. For example, first 100 kilometer if you run from electric and your battery got exhausted, then you switch off this battery one and switch on the petrol one. It's a matter of fraction of seconds only. If you talk about the range, it varies from 60 to 120 kilometer. And for speed, it varies from 70 to 125 kilometer.
Well, in a significant move in semiconductor space, the Indian cabinet has approved the setting up of 3 semiconductor units. Hailing the decision, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, "With this, we are further strengthening our transformative journey towards technological self-reliance." He added that this will also ensure India emerges as a global hub in semiconductor manufacturing.
The Union Cabinet chaired by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given go-ahead for the establishment of 3 semiconductor units under Development of Semiconductors and Display Manufacturing Ecosystems in India program. All 3 units will start construction within the next 100 days. Advanced packaging technologies will be indigenously developed in India with this announcement.
देश में सेमीकंडक्टर फैब का अप्रूवल देश के लिए बहुत बड़ा निर्णायक मोड़ है ये, और आत्मनिर्भर भारत बनाने की जो संकल्प लिया है प्रधानमंत्री जी ने, उस संकल्प की बहुत बड़ी ये सिद्धि है। पहली कॉमर्शियल फैब भारत की बनेगी टाटा और पावर चिप ताइवान, इनके कोलैबोरेशन से धोलेरा स्पेशल इंडस्ट्रियल रीजन के अंदर बनेगी पहली semiconductor fab.
The multitude of strategic significance of Mission Semiconductor ranges from establishing the semiconductor ecosystem in India to leveraging India's deep capabilities in chip design and developing capabilities in chip fabrication. More semiconductor units will also lead to accelerated employment in automotive, electronics, manufacturing and other sectors. Advanced packaging technologies will also be indigenously developed in India with Thursday's announcement. The Indian Cabinet's approval of semiconductor fab or semiconductor fabrication unit is a significant step towards making India a self-reliant country in semiconductor space. Besides this, India is also seeking foreign investments for its indigenous semiconductor industry for the development and design of fabrication units impacting India's semiconductor ambitions. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
And the Ministry of Women and Child Development hosted the Poshan Utsav celebrating nutrition event in New Delhi on Thursday. The event was graced by Minister Smriti Irani and Bill Gates co-chair Melinda Gates Foundation. Poshan Utsav aims to promote holistic nutrition among children by utilizing popular cartoon characters through collaboration with Amar Chitra Katha. In an effort to endorse cultural heritage and traditional nutritional practices, a Poshan Utsav book has been curated and launched. This book serves as a comprehensive guide on food, providing insights from cultural, social, economic and scientific perspectives.
I'm grateful for your sense of adventure, for your generosity, and for your continued support to the Prime Minister's flagship scheme, Poshan Abhiyan. When the Honorable Prime Minister pronounced Poshan Abhiyan in 2018, and I'd like to contextualize a bit, that nutrition as a national effort has been undertaken since the 1970s. However, when Prime Minister Modi took office, for the first time in the history of our country, not one, not two, but 18 ministries across the government of India were brought together under the national flagship scheme called Poshan. And why so? Because the Prime Minister believes in collaboration. Collaboration and cooperative federalism was one of his governance agendas.
And North India to witness some wet weather as clouds start entering the Indian region due to western disturbance. Areas across Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are very likely to experience rain or snowfall till 3rd of March with heavy to very heavy snow or rain and hailstorm. Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, parts of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh will also very likely experience rainfall with thunderstorms, gusty winds and hailstorm at isolated places over the region till 3rd of March. Every year, the world observes Rare Disease Day in the last week of February, highlighting the importance of research and advocacy. While new ones are still being discovered, the National Institute of Health identified rare over 7,000 diseases. DD India's Jessica Taneja spoke with country head of AstraZeneca, Dr. Sanjeev Panchal. Take a listen.
Recently, in last few months, we have done two collaboration. One is Government of Karnataka. We've signed an MOU to have AI technology for X-ray screening for lung diseases, 29 modalities, which means that all district hospitals in Karnataka, X-rays which are happening would be screened to find an early signals of lung cancer. Now, this is coming from a purpose of eliminating lung cancer as a cause of death in future, but we are doing this with Karnataka government.
That's a project you've already done in Goa as well.
And then after that, we did in Goa.
Oh,
so we announced that collaboration first in October, and then in January we announced with Goa. So now we are working with each state government, for example, because we want to really make an impact. It's difficult to make an impact. The purpose is to eliminate lung cancer as a cause of death one day. Now, this has to happen at a very large scale, and we are using AI for it. But what we have heard before and what we are doing now is to really partnering with the government. First, we were doing in the private market, but now we believe that we have to collaborate for academia with the government institution. That's why Karnataka government and Goa government, and now we want to take this forward in other states as well.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. India's Defence Research and Development Organisation conducted two successful flight tests of very short-range air defence system missile on Wednesday and Thursday. The tests were conducted from integrated test range off the coast of eastern state of Odisha. These tests were carried out against high-speed unmanned aerial targets under different interception scenarios. The targets were intercepted and destroyed by the missiles.
3, 2, 1. Vehicle gone.
India's Jammu and Kashmir concluded its first ever Agri-Med Science Congress 2023-24 on Thursday. The three-day annual event was held in Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology. Experts from agriculture, medical sciences, biomedical research, Ayush and Unani medicine gathered together to discuss reshaping bioeconomy towards One Health. The goal of the event is to bring people from medical science and agriculture sciences to one platform. Sutra, a month-long international weaving workshop in India's southern city, Leopard, has attracted artists and weavers from across the globe since the start of February. The 3-decade-old festival saw at least 100 artists and weavers from 50 countries participate. The workshop also had an exhibition of around 300 curated tapestries by the participants. And still to come on DD India News Hour. In a bid to become more self-sufficient, Ukraine significantly increased its use of domestic-made weapons and military equipment. Polish government and farmers are on the same side and have the same goals, says Polish Prime Minister after meeting farmers. US military conducted strikes that posed a threat to ships in the Red Sea.
Curious case of Julian Assange. The future of lunar exploration. And the biggest snake discovered in the Amazon rainforests. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India. In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authenticity.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Leopard and moving on. The U.S. military conducted strikes that posed a threat to ships in the Red Sea. U.S. Central Command said in a post on X that military officials conducted strikes on Thursday against 6 mobile anti-ship cruise missiles and an aerial drone. Earlier, U.S. military intercepted an unmanned aerial vehicle over the southern Red Sea in self-defense. These actions were taken to safeguard the freedom of navigation and enhance the safety and security of international waters for U.S. Navy and merchant vessels. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthis will introduce military surprises in their Red Sea operations. In a television speech, the group's leader, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, has said that their position is clear and operations will continue in a highly efficient manner in the direction of the Red Sea. Houthi militants have repeatedly launched drones and missiles against international commercial shipping since mid-November, saying they are acting in solidarity with Palestinians against Israel's military actions in Gaza. Well, also, gun battles broke out across the Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince on Thursday in what a gang leader said was a demonstration against the authorities. The armed clashes involving gangs, police and vigilantes took place on the same day Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry arrived in Kenya for talks on the deployment of a multinational security mission in the country backed by the United Nations. Thousands fled through the streets in panic as violence forced the airport, businesses and schools to close. Special police units were also deployed throughout the city. A national police trade union said 4 officers had been killed, including a chief inspector. And moving on, Ukrainian forces have pushed back Russian troops from the village of Orlivka, west of Avdiivka, but the situation on the eastern front remains still difficult. Orlivka is less than 2 kilometers northwest of Lastochikne, which was occupied this week by Russian forces. Russian forces last week captured the eastern Ukrainian city of Avdiivka after a month-long assault and are pressing on other areas along the front line. Meanwhile, Ukraine has significantly increased its use of domestic-made weapons and military equipment as Kyiv aims to become more self-sufficient amid faltering Western military aid. Deputy Defense Minister said that the use of domestically produced equipment has significantly increased, more importantly, to become self-sufficient. The minister also called for Kyiv's foreign partners to boost investment and participation in joint production with Ukrainian companies. Ukraine has signed dozens of contracts for joint production or technology exchanges with Western allies. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President appointed Vladimir Karpenko as new commander of country's logistic forces on Thursday. Karpenko, previously logistic commander of country's ground forces, replaced Ole Hulyaka, who had held the position since 2021. Karpenko's appointment was the latest in a series of personnel changes in the military, including the naming of Alexander Syrsky as commander-in-chief of the armed forces in place of Valery Zaluzhnyi. Meanwhile, the group of 20 or the G20 finance ministers failed to agree on a joint statement as they wrapped up talks on Thursday, with divisions over the wars in Gaza and Ukraine overshadowing efforts to forge a consensus on global economic development. Brazil, which hosted finance ministers and central bank chiefs from the group of 20 major economies, issued its own summary in lieu of a shared communique. Brazil's summary cited the economic risk of wars and escalating conflicts, but urged a debate on them in other venues. And a day before the funeral of Russia's main opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, and amid the two-year-long war with Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a powerful State of the Nation address on Thursday. Putin warned that any escalation by NATO could trigger the use of nuclear weapons and expressed his growing confidence in the war's direction. He also accused NATO of preparing to strike Russian territory. Syed Afzarul Hasan has more on this.
Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered his annual State of the Nation address on Thursday, updating the nation on the war in Ukraine, Moscow's nuclear capability, the country's economy, and relations with the West. The speech comes 2 weeks ahead of a presidential election in which Putin is expected to win another 6-year term in landslide. Putin cautioned NATO countries, stating that they risk nuclear conflict by deploying troops to Ukraine.
We also have weapons. They know about this. And I just said we also have a weapon that can hit targets on their territory. And they should understand that what they are doing now, trying to scare the whole world, it does risk a conflict with nuclear weapons, which means the destruction of civilization. Don't they understand this, or what?
Putin stated that Russia is prepared for a dialogue with the US on strategic stability, but he rejected any attempts to coerce Russia into negotiations.
Russia is ready for dialogue with the United States on the issue of strategic stability. Our position is clear. If you want to discuss the significant, important issue of security and stability, which is important for the entire planet, you must do so only in a single junction. Naturally, including all those aspects that affect our national interests and directly affect the security of our country.
Putin also said Russia had used advanced weapon systems, including Zircon hypersonic missiles, and that it held the military advantage in Ukraine. On the ground, Russia asserted control over a strategic village in the Ukrainian Avdiivka direction. Meanwhile, Ukraine reported a launching attack on Russian air defense system. The Russian army repelled several assaults by the Ukrainian army and initiated offensives in Kupiansk and other directions, resulting in destruction of the Ukrainian army equipment, including tanks, armored vehicles, and self-propelled artillery. Syed Afzarul Hasan for DD India.
And Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on Thursday held a meeting with leaders of various farmer groups. Donald Tusk said that Polish government and farmers are on the same side and have the same goal after the meeting. Like much of Europe, Poland has been gripped by protests in recent weeks as farmers demonstrate against European Union environmental regulations. Tusk said the provisions of the Green Deal, EU's regulations meant to tackle climate change, should be lifted or suspended, and he will negotiate it within the European Union.
The farmers for sure presented different views, different political sympathies, but we all finally believe that we are on the same side anyway. Our government, me personally, and the protesters have the same goal: to protect Polish farming, Polish market, and the European market against very unfair and crushing consequences. We have decided we will prepare precise demands of the Polish side, not only the protesters but also the government, regarding changes in the Green Deal.
Well, US President Joe Biden will talk to Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on Friday about high-priority global challenges, including military aid for Ukraine and humanitarian aid for Gaza. They are due to hold a bilateral meeting at the White House. Caroline Meloni reports from Washington for more.
The US has been struggling to get new military aid spending for Ukraine through Congress, with divisions within the House and Senate on what the priority should be for spending. But President Biden still insists the US supports Kyiv in their campaign to fight back against Russian aggression as part of a more than 2-year-long war. It's a high agenda item for Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, with Italy also holding the current G7 presidency, a role which involves coordination with allies in NATO on their security alliance. The US has also honed in on more sanctions for Russia's actions and repression, particularly for those involved in the imprisonment of the opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who died, or was killed, his family say, in prison in Russia. Well, the two leaders will also discuss preventing any more escalation of violence in the Middle East. The US has been pushing for a truce between Israel and Hamas, with Egypt and Qatar supporting talks also to get all hostages freed. But getting humanitarian aid into people who need it in Gaza has become even more difficult, with the United Nations accusing Israel of blocking shipments. And on Thursday, Israeli troops fired on a large crowd of Palestinians who were trying to get food aid from a convoy in Gaza City, killing more than 100 people. An attack that's been widely condemned, and with President Biden saying it could actually make getting to a ceasefire even more difficult. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Biden and Trump walked the US-Mexico border in Texas on Thursday amidst influx of immigrants, becoming a dominant issue in November presidential elections. No signs of resolution to South Korean doctor strike. Only 3% doctors return to work. And Cape Town artist retells story of township life, which was deeply rooted in community through his paintings.
Curious case of Julian Assange. The future of lunar exploration. and the biggest snake discovered in the Amazon rainforests. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Leopard and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit Jharkhand, West Bengal and Bihar will inaugurate key developmental projects. Amidst the rising need for humanitarian aid, India reiterates its support for Palestinian people, affirms continuation of relief supply and assistance. Russia is ready for dialogue with United States but rejected any attempts to force into talks. Putin also warns Western countries against sending troops to Ukraine. And massive fire in Bangladesh claims at least 44 lives. 5-member committee to investigate the incident. Well, a massive fire at a 7-story building in Bangladesh's capital Dhaka has killed at least 44 people and left dozens injured. According to the fire service officials, the fire originated in a restaurant and quickly spread to other floors. Bangladesh's Health Minister Samantha Lal Sain told reporters after visiting the Dhaka Medical College Hospital that the injured are admitted with severe burns and are in critical condition. A 5-member committee has been formed to investigate the incident. And more than a week after, thousands of doctors walked off the job, but their dispute with the government shows no signs of resolution. Only 3% of the doctors protesting against the South Korean government have returned to work as of Wednesday, one day before the Thursday deadline. In an email to the protesting resident doctors delivered on Thursday, the head of Seoul National University Hospital appealed to them to be back to work, marking the first official call from a major hospital chief in South Korea, urging them to resume their duties. The South Korean government has announced that starting in March, medical licenses of interns and resident doctors who are still absent from their post will be revoked for at least 3 months, among other legal actions. Yet off-duty doctors are still reluctant to return to work. Interns and resident doctors in South Korea have been on strike for several days, protesting against a proposed increase in medical school admissions. And for more on this, we have a correspondent, Chris Kilbert, joining us. Well, Chris, the doctors' dispute with the government is showing no signs of waning as of now. Only 3% doctors rejoined. What's the current status?
Yeah, less than 3% actually. If you look at the doctors who actually resigned, about 10,000 resigned, but only about 9,000 have walked off the job. And at the moment, as you mentioned, about 300 of those have returned. Look, we are now, several hours past the deadline that has expired of the government's ultimatum to return to work. The standoff doesn't really look like it's going to end anytime soon. The government has taken some action. They have begun effectively raiding the offices of medical associations, the Solar Medical Association and the Korean Medical Association's emergency committees. Police have begun going through computers and phones for what they say they're looking for. Relevant information, but no details yet about what exactly that information may be. We do know also that 5 senior doctors in South Korea have had formal complaints and police complaints filed against them. That was a few days ago. And we also know that police have been visiting the homes of doctors, as there are reports that they have been allegedly turning off their phones or being unavailable to receive, these ultimatums from the Korean government. And so I guess for legal reasons, to make sure the message has in fact got through, the health ministry has made sure that message has been delivered in person to many senior doctors as well. But again, as I say, the standoff continues.
All right. Also, what kind of difficulties is the general public facing because of this doctor strike, which is on from several days now? How are the emergency situations being handled there?
It is certainly putting a severe strain on the resources, and just before I go into some details, one can only imagine what this is going to be like 3 months from now if the government does in fact, revoke medical licenses, not just of those doctors who have resigned and walked out, but the senior doctors who are supporting the trainee doctors. They have a shortage of medical staff to begin with. That is why they want to increase the number of seats in medical schools. But the details we're seeing are the number of operations that have been scheduled slashed. So effectively 1 in every 2 people now who are scheduled for an operation, either emergency or waitlisted, is now not having their operation, or they have been delayed. Emergency beds have been running out at major hospitals. We saw the other day that nurses have been asked to stand in and do the work of doctors, and that they have been legally allowed to do that. But there are concerns amongst the nursing staff that they may be open to legal challenges and malpractice, that's out of their purview, which is somewhat ironic considering that being open to malpractice lawsuits is one of the reasons that these doctors are walking out and striking to begin with. And so there is, as I say, a severe strain and pressures that are building daily on the South Korean health system. Every day that this goes on, there are still tens of thousands of doctors available throughout the country, but those trainee doctors are a very significant cog in the wheel, especially for them to graduate and become senior doctors themselves one day.
All right, a very ironic situation indeed there. Thank you so much, Chris, for that information and update. And moving on, U.S. President Joe Biden and likely Republican challenger Donald Trump walked the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas on Thursday. The duo visited the U.S.-Mexico border amidst an influx of immigrants becoming a dominant issue for the voters. Each chose an optimal location to make his point, and their schedules were remarkably similar. They each got a briefing on operations and issues, walked along the border, and gave remarks that overlapped. But that's where the comparisons ended. While Trump chose inflammatory language to describe the border issue and slam his rival's policies, Biden challenged Trump to join him in united front on border security bill.
States is being overrun by the Biden migrant crime. It's a new form of vicious violation to our country. It's migrant crime. We call it Biden migrant crime, but that's a little bit long, so we'll just leave it. But every time you hear the term migrant crime, you know where that comes from.
Here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of playing politics with the issue, why don't we just get together and get it done? Let's remember who the heck we work for. We work for the American people, not the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. We work for the American people.
Well, a Florida judge is holding a hearing later on Friday to determine a schedule for when one of Donald Trump's criminal cases will go to trial. This case centers around Trump's handling of classified documents once he left office. It comes after Judge Aileen Cannon this week denied his co-defendants' bid to review the records they allegedly moved for the former president. U.S. correspondent William Densolo reports for more.
This hearing will focus on a few key details, including legal wranglings over evidence, potential document redactions, and the trial's timeline. In a win for prosecutors earlier this week, Judge Aileen Cannon denied a request from Donald Trump's co-defendants, Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, to review documents they're accused of helping Donald Trump to conceal. Both men face charges relating to destroying or concealing documents, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and making false statements. Nauta and de Oliveira have both pleaded not guilty. In her ruling that could well speed up legal proceedings, the judge said the special counsel had met the burden to withhold classified discovery, and that reviewing the materials wouldn't be useful in their defence. Cannon must still rule on whether Donald Trump's legal team can access a batch of classified materials the Justice Department deems sensitive to national security. The former president has also pleaded not guilty to charges that he kept hold of classified documents at his Florida home after leaving the White House and obstructing efforts to recover them. The trial is currently scheduled for May and is one of 4 criminal cases that Trump faces as he aims to regain the presidency in November's election. He denies wrongdoing in all these cases and says the US justice system has been weaponized against him. William Denslow in New York reporting for DD India.
And the German Minister of Interior, Nancy Faeser, and her Ecuadorian counterpart, Monica Palencia, agreed on Thursday to cooperate in combating terrorism, drug trafficking and other forms of crime that affect the two countries. Faeser said Europe has also part of the responsibility in fighting drug trafficking, as it is one of the main sales markets. The German top official arrived in Ecuador after visiting Brazil and Peru. She will end her Latin American tour in Colombia. And Iranians will vote in a parliamentary election on Friday. It is seen as a litmus test of the clerical establishment's popularity amid growing discontent over economic, political and social strains. Iran's clerical rulers are seeking a big turnout to shore up their legitimacy, damaged following months of mass protest ignited by the death in custody of a young woman in 2022. On the same day as the parliamentary vote, Iran holds elections to pick 88 members of a powerful clerical body known as the Assembly of Experts, which is tasked with appointing or dismissing the supreme leader. Well, moving on, the U.S. Republicans have criticized U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at a hearing for failing to disclose his prostate cancer surgery and subsequent hospitalization to President Joe Biden. With support from Democrats on the House of Representatives Armed Service Committee, Austin sought to dispel accusations that his absence jeopardized national security or demonstrated any lack of influence. But Republicans questioned how Biden could go for days without knowing Austin was hospitalized. Austin has apologized for the way he handled the matter, including Biden himself, but his appearance before the committee was the first time lawmakers could directly question him. And the World Trade Organization's 13th Ministerial Conference at Abu Dhabi has been extended until Friday, that is 1st of March, to allow further discussions and facilitate outcomes on main issues. In a statement, WTO said at the meeting of heads of delegation on 28th of February, DG Okonjo-Iweala called on members to go to the extra mile to find convergence on the various negotiations at the ministerial gathering and to be mindful that time is running out to conclude meaningful agreements. At the ongoing 13th Ministerial Conference of the WTO, India stressed that all policy options should be available for the WTO members to pursue for promoting digital industrialization. Well, a New Zealand court on Friday ordered tour booking agents and managers to pay nearly $7.8 million in fines and reparations over a volcanic eruption in an island that had killed 22 people in 2019. Tour operators, White Island Tours, Volcanic Air Safaris, Kahu New Zealand and Areas, along with the corporate owner of the island, Wahakari Management Limited, were found to have not sufficiently ensured the safety of visitors to the island. 47 people were on the island at the time of eruption. Many of the survivors suffered severe burns. And in weather update, incessant rain has flooded many areas in northern Bolivia, displacing thousands of residents and damaging houses and businesses. Over 900 families have been affected by rains in the area, and damage was reported to be the heaviest in the northern Bolivian city of Cobija. In Cochabamba, the rural community of La Quina was buried in mud. The administrative capital, La Paz, has been put on red alert for a disaster risk. At least 42 people have died, according to the latest reports. Well, the atmospheric rivers are becoming a rising threat to homes in California's coastline. Also, earlier this month, the second so-called Pineapple Express weather system pounded the state with heavy rainfall and hurricane-force winds within just a week after the first round of atmospheric rivers had battered California's coastal cliffs. California's governor, Gavin Newsom, declared a state of emergency in 8 countries with a combined population of more than 20 million people. Flash flood warnings were also issued for parts of Los Angeles, Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Panama's authorities seized 5 tons of drugs in the Caribbean that were on board a boat bound for Spain on Thursday. The packets were found at the Caribbean port of Colón inside a banana cargo. Panamanian authorities have seized 19 tons of drugs this year so far. Dr. Ruth Gottesman, a former professor of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, is donating $1 billion to the New York City school to pay for the tuition of all of its students. With the gift, all current full-time students will have their spring 2024 semester tuition reimbursed, and all future students will attend the school tuition-free. Japanese archaeologists have unearthed a Hittite clay tablet in Turkey dating back 3,300 years to the era of the Hittite Empire. The tablet was discovered at the Buklakale ruins in central Turkey. The tablet had engravings of the Hurrian Kal language that was used for religious rituals. For the first time, the University of the Philippines is offering a course to study the celebrity status of 14-time Grammy-winning singer-songwriter Taylor Swift and her impact on society. More than 300 students have signed up for the elective course ahead of Swift's Eras tour in Asia this week. South African artist Mongezi Gam is retelling the story of his roots in his most recent collection dubbed Ubomi Kwalanga. Through his art, Gam reflects on his life in the oldest township in South Africa, which was deeply rooted in community and belongings before it was affected by unemployment and crime. And still to come on DD India News Now. Indian economy strengthened in February, continuing a 4-month high in January. The US markets ended higher at closing bells as inflation data supports Fed's rate cut view. And the 4th edition of Khelo India University Games 2023 concluded in Guwahati on Thursday.
Curious case of Julian Assange. The future of lunar exploration. And the biggest snake discovered in the Amazon rainforests. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD India News. Leopard and on to some business updates now. India's space industry has welcomed the Union Cabinet's decision to liberalize the sector, which would attract investments to the tune of up to $5 billion. The policy cleared by the Union Cabinet ensures 100% foreign direct investment in the manufacturing of components and system or subsystems for satellites, ground segments and user segments. Director General of the Indian Space Association, Anil Kumar Bhatt, said the new FDI policy is expected to attract significant inflows in the next 2 to 5 years. We project the allowing of higher FDI levels and overseas capital participation to catalyze over $4 to $5 billion into India's space industry across subsectors like satellite manufacturing, launch vehicles, ground segment solutions and associated services over the next 3 to 5 years. And the Indian economy strengthened in February, continuing a 4-month high in January. It saw accelerations in both manufacturing and services sector during the month. The HSBC Flash India Composite Purchasing Managers Index compiled by S&P Global climbed to 61.5 in February from a revised reading of 61.2 for January, well above the 50-point threshold that differentiates expansion from contraction. Also, the U.S. markets ended higher at closing bells, supported by AI-linked tech stocks as inflation data and comments from Federal Reserve officials helped shape expectations for the timing of the central bank's interest rate cuts. The most important of these released data announced post-closing bells was the inflation snapshot in the personal consumption expenditure series. This time, the numbers came on the expected lines, with the headline price index up 2.4% in January from December's 2.6%. And the core reading up by 2.8% from 2.9%. This deceleration amidst reduced numbers is expected to keep rate cup hopes alive, even if they're not likely to come soon. Heavyweight AI tech from NVIDIA advanced as the biggest boost to the benchmark S&P index and Nasdaq, while small arrival advanced micro devices surged. Stocks of other tech firms associated with NVIDIA's products rose ahead of its report after the bell. At close, the S&P 500 gained 0.51% to end at 5,095.78 points, while the Nasdaq Composite gained 0.90% to 16,091.93. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose to 0.07% and ended at 38,973.09. And in sports update, India's Prasar Bharati and Gayatri Gopi-Chand advanced to the women's double quarterfinals of the German Open Super 300 badminton tournament on Thursday. The Indian pair pulled off a comfortable 21-10, 21-11 straight game win over the Czech Republic duo of Sona Horenkova and Katerina Zuzakov in a round of 16 match. The Indian duo will next play the winner of the match between Franziska Corbett and Alison Lee and sixth seeds Jingyi and Xiumin Liu. However, it was curtains for India in the women's and men's single events, where India's Akarshi Kashyap lost to sixth seed Mia Blenchfeldt of Denmark in the round of 16, and Satish Kumar Karunakaran, who was shown the door by Ireland's Nahat Nguyen in the men's singles second round. Well, the Indian men's 4x200-meter freestyle relay team have registered the best Indian team, clocking 7 minutes, 26.64 seconds, on their way to a gold medal finish at the 11th Asian Age Group Swimming Championships in Kapas in Philippines. The Indians' quarter of Sri Hari Natraj, Anish Gowda, Sajan Prakash and Aryan Nehra clocked 7 minutes to 26.64 seconds, battering the previous 7 minutes 29.04 seconds by Aryan, Anish, Kushagra Rawat and Tanish George Matthew at the Hangzhou Asian Games last year. Meanwhile, Palak Joshi clinched the gold in the girls' 200-meter backstroke in Group B event, while Nitik Nathela and Rishabh Das took home the silver and bronze medals respectively in the boys' 200-meter backstroke in Group B event. And France and Juventus midfielder Paul Pogba has been banned for 4 years for a doping offence earlier this season. Pogba was provisionally suspended by Italy's National Anti-Doping Tribunal in September after testing positive for testosterone, a banned substance. The test, performed after Juve's 3-0 Serie A season opening victory at Udinese on August 20th, detected testosterone, a hormone that increases athletes' endurance. The 30-year-old was an unused substitute in that game. Pogba's positive doping test was also confirmed in a counter-analysis on a second sample in October. Juventus did not comment, but a source confirmed that the club had been notified about the decision of a 4-year ban and would assess the next steps. And Victor Dele Rieu bagged a third straight Fred Ride World Tour win with victory in the inaugural Georgia Pro on Thursday. The two-time FWT champion from France had already won the Verbier Pro and the Kicking Horse Golden BC Pro. The Spaniard's second victory of the campaign came by Nuria Castan-Beron in the women's snowboard event. On the skis, Canadian Marcus Gauguin scored a near-perfect score of 98 to take home the men's victory, while Sibylle Blangian of Switzerland reigned supreme in the women's competition. The Free Ride World Tour now moves on to the last two events of the season, with the Fleberbrand Pro in Austria from March 12th to 18th, before a return to Verbier for the grand finale from the 33rd of March. And the fourth edition of Khelo India University Games 2023 Ashtalakshmi, which started on the 17th of February, were officially declared closed by the Assam Sports Minister Nandita Gorlosa in Guwahati on Thursday. Let's take a look at this report.
A glittering closing ceremony with musical performances from local artists marked the end of 4th Khelo India University Games 2023 in the presence of Assam's Sports Minister Nandita Gorlosa and Joint Secretary of India's Sports Ministry Prem Kumar Jha on Thursday. Chandigarh University were crowned the overall champions of the Khelo India University Games 2023 with a total of 71 medals, including 32 gold, 18 silver and 21 bronze. This is the first time that Chandigarh University has won the overall crown. Lovely Professional University were a distant second with 20 gold, 14 silver and 8 bronze, while Guru Nanak Dev University with 12 gold, 20 silver and 19 bronze were only contingent apart from the champions to cross the 50 medal mark. Speaking on the occasion, Nandita Gorlosa lauded the initiative of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his vision of youth empowerment through sports. She also hailed the efforts of Assam government in successfully hosting the Khelo India University Games.
Happily, I'm standing here, yet another cap in Assam's feather, as the state successfully hosted another multidisciplinary national level event, the 4th edition of the Khelo India University Games 2023, Ashtalakshmi, setting a new standard in hospitality and organization. The Khelo India initiative, based on Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's vision of youth empowerment through sports, has become a flagship annual event and the 4th edition of Khelo India University Games 2023.
The 4th edition of Khelo India University Games witnessed participation of more than 5,000 athletes from over 200 universities in the 20 disciplines held across the various venues in Assam and other northeastern states. The event witnessed several record-breaking performances in various events from the athletes, setting a new on-field benchmark. The Khelo India University Games is a part of the Indian government's Khelo India initiative that was launched in 2016. The Khelo India mission focuses on promoting grassroots sports and identifying youth talents from across the country.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News App. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News App.